Brian Pearcey. I am a director at our Business Advisory and Systems Advisory Department at Scrutton Bland. And I tend to run these sessions on a quarterly basis, giving you updates as to what has changed in Xero and sometimes associated apps. But this quarter, there's been quite a lot going on. There's been a lot of changes that have either come out or are coming up very soon. And I want to run through some of those today. The first one, and a big change, big new product really from Xero, is Analytics Plus. Now, you may have seen Analytics before, and there's a couple of reports that Xero have released. They've probably been out for about 6 to 9 months, but they've enhanced these, and I'll do a bit of a deep dive and show you some of the things that have changed. Now, Analytics Plus is going to be a paid-for service, so there may be some benefits to you, and I'll run through where or how you may make the most of that if you want to adopt it. Next is packing slips. Small tweak here, but something that's been requested for a long time. So I'll show you how that's been brought in and where you'll find that inside Xero. Next, and it seems to be what I talk about every quarter, but enhanced reporting. So Xero are still working through changing a lot of their reporting, and I'll focus on a few things that they've tweaked and brought in this quarter, and a key area that's actually been bugging me for quite a while. So I'll show you what they've tweaked there. The next is enhanced bank reconciliation. Now, this actually only came out very recently. You've probably seen a change in the screen, but I'll touch on what's gone on in the background and how that should hopefully improve the bank reconciliation process for you all. Next area is the App Store. So if you ever used any apps that are associated with Xero, you generally would have found these in what would have been the app marketplace. And that's now been renamed or rebranded to the App Store, and there's some fundamental changes in there and how that's going to work going forward. And then lastly, with changes, upcoming changes, pricing. There is a price change upcoming for Xero, and I'll touch on what that looks like and how we're working with our clients in that area as well. And then finally, what are Xero predicting will come in the next quarter? Not as much planned as what's happened in the last quarter, but Xero tend to throw in quite a few little things that they're not predicting or not releasing or preempting in their quarterly update. So I'll run through some of those you may see as well over the next quarter. So firstly, Analytics Plus. Now, if you've ever played around in the business section of Xero, so right at the top and drop down, you would have seen an area that says Analytics. Now, this came about 6 to 9 months ago and are formed of 2 reports, basically, things that you'd normally find in the reporting section of Xero, but they've been focusing on as probably added tools rather than specific reports. So those are the short-term cash flow and the business snapshot. Now, Analytics as it was is remaining the same. They're not charging anything for that, but they've enhanced it quite fundamentally, really, and they will be charging for that going forward. So what is it? What have they done for Analytics Plus? So for the short-term cash flow, they've expanded this from 30 days to now 60 and 90 days, which actually fundamentally makes this tool a lot more useful than it was. Now, to do that, they've had to expand on how the tool works. Now, historically, this was based on just your due dates in invoicing. So it would look at what your due dates are, and if you've overridden it, the expected receivable or payment dates, and work out your cash flow based on your bank at now, and when you'll pay and receive these invoices to work out what your cash or bank would be like in the future. Now, they've added on to this a bit of AI, which is looking at the trends of non-invoice transactions. So anything you're posting directly to the ledger, be that the balance sheet or the P&L, and looking at how you generally make those payments over the last year or two, and predicting what you'll do going forward to create an overarching cash flow prediction. So looking at both your invoices and your non-invoice transactions. Now, it's not going to get 100% correct on anything of this. It's using predictions, and it will learn as you basically teach it. And to do that, you can add and exclude transactions. So if you think you're going to have a rolling transaction that will occur that Xero's not picked up on, you can bring that in. If you have a one-off transaction, so an investment that you're planning for, you can bring that in. And you can also exclude transactions. You can exclude transactions that that Xero are predicting. So you can remove those from the cash flow report. Now, what this is actually doing is take away some of the benefits of some of the cash flow tools that are already on the market, such as Fluidly or Float, and bringing those into Xero on a simplified scale. Definitely something to look at if you are managing your cash flow in any other way, I would advise looking at Analytics Plus and Xero short-term cash flow. Does mean you have to keep your processing up to date, but can add a lot of benefits for small and medium-sized businesses. The business snapshot, what they've done is added in a cash reporting tool. So it was purely accruals. Now they've added cash reporting. So you can flick between the two very easy by a click of a button, and you can exclude accounts. Now, whether this is useful or not, I've not worked out, because generally you're going to want to look at what your business is looking at as a whole, not just a small area of it. So the ability to remove a nominal transaction, I'm not sure is that helpful. But what is helpful is the ability to drill into the figures. So previously you just had a report. Now you can actually drill into the figures, work out what's making up those figures, and allow you to understand what's driving, I guess, the KPIs inside your business. Get my slides to work again. So as I mentioned, this will be a paid for service. Now, at first, they're going to offer it for free. It's going to be offered for free until the 31st of January 2022. So you've got a while to play with it, but it will automatically add on to your subscription. So you have to opt in to use Analytics Plus. So if you do want to use it, please let me know if we manage your subscriptions, and I will add it for you. But you'll also have to let me know if you want to remove it, because otherwise you'll add on an additional £5 per month from the 1st of February 2022. Now you may see value in that, and to be honest, looking at that, especially the cash flow side, I can see a lot of value in it, but it depends on how you operate inside your software. So worth playing with, definitely worth adding on in the meantime. So please let me know if that's something you want to do. And just a reminder, maybe stick something in your calendar that if you want to remove it from your subscription, just to drop me an email in January and I'll do so. Now, packing slips, not really that exciting, to be honest. As you can see, this is an incredibly boring example that I've managed to put on the screen, but you can brand these, you can tailor them, edit them as like any other invoice or delivery notes or anything inside Xero. The packing slip has been something that's been asked for a long time, and they've brought this in a very simplified fashion, which I'll show you in a demonstration later. But in essence, it's quite a simple document. They're basically looking at the description of the item and the quantity. You obviously the bits at the top, because I've used our demo company, you'll have your branding, etc., and your address, etc., details on there. But the packing slip will look quite simplified compared to some of the other documents. Just enables you to print it and attach it without having to edit or create a document inside Xero yourself to meet that need. Now, to find that, that's generally in the invoicing section. So in the top left-hand corner of this, you'll see I've gone into sales overview and then invoices and selected an invoice. And then the top right-hand area where you would normally go and find the printing for your invoice, you can now print a packing slip. It's as simple as that. Create it as a PDF if you need to, or print it on a document and send it out. So, as I mentioned, it's a tailorable area. So similar to invoices, if you never edited these yourself, definitely worth going into inside the invoice settings section, inside settings, inside Xero. You can add your logos and play around with where things appear inside this. You can do that with the packing slips, but generally it's going to take the default format and create that for you, which is just to have the description and the quantity. Now, one thing I do need to mention is if you're still using the old invoicing module inside Xero, you will not see this. It's only in new invoicing. So you have to enable new invoicing, which is at the bottom of your every invoice you go into. If you've not seen that before and you're still using the old invoicing tool, please click it. It's been developed a lot from where it was 6 months ago. And in fact, from what I've seen, the new invoicing functionality is far better than the old one. They're not developing the old one. All new tools are coming into the new one. Now, I mentioned reporting, and that reporting seems to be something we've looked at every quarter. Now, small tweaks here. So you can now star or favorite every single report in the reporting suite. Now, it was an oddity that you can only tick once before. So if you've ever gone into reports at the top and gone into that section, you can only star certain ones. You can now star all of them. Not massive for most people because the key reports are always able to be favorited, but some that you may use, you can now make on your drop-down menu and get into them much more easily. A small tweak that they've made is you can now look at income and expenses by contact. Previously, you could look at just income by contact or just expenses by contact. For some reason, this is something that a lot of people want to see, so they've brought in income expenses by contact. Now, this does not include payments. It does not include how payments or receipts have been allocated against that contact. That's a little bit more difficult to attain, but if that's something that's key for you and something you need to know, please reach out to me. I'm happy to show you the best way of identifying that. Small other tweak is the ability to reorder columns, move that around quite easily within the reporting tool. Previously, you had to go and edit the report and then save that as a new custom report. Now you can tweak that directly within inside your report. Another small tweak to enable those that use the foreign or the premium version of Xero that enables foreign currency is a better inclusion of foreign currency transactions inside the Xero reporting. Now, the main one and the main use that I've seen is a revalued foreign currency report. So this is where you've edited a transaction where you're not using the default foreign currency rate that's been brought in by Xero. You've overridden that. And that might be key to see actually where have I adjusted these, where am I not using what standard, and how far of a change is that from the standard. You can run a report now which will actually show you what has been edited quite easily, and you can filter for that and see what's the effect on the business. But the main one that we've seen, and not one that you may not have come across before, but has been a big pain point in Xero, is if you've ever gone into the custom report section. So if you're ever editing a report, you could always select a date range. So I'd say I'd want it to be January. But then if you move forward, so you're now up into March, it would still be showing January. It doesn't follow the reporting period that you want to look at. And finally, Xero have brought this in to track to that date range that you select at the top. So now if you go, I want this column to only show whatever I've selected at the top of my report, you can save that, which makes the customization of reports fundamentally improve from what they were. This has been a massive pain point and limited what we could offer to clients. So if you never customized reports before, I'll show you where to go to look at that in a second. But if you have done it and this has been an aggravation for you, they've finally solved it, and it's been a massive relief for us. Now, just as I'll go in and show you in a demo, but just for those that have ever gone in and customized report, and you'll notice by kind of the top row on this screenshot, this is what the customized report bar looks like inside Xero. You can find you can basically find this tracking report over in that date range. It's now called follow report date range. Now, the gray bit is what was already selected when I went in to edit this report. So it's prompting me and basically saying, this is what's already shown. Do you want us to use that inside the custom report? So that's where you find it. It wasn't there before. Now they've added it. Minor tweak. They've not really talked about it much. Massive effect on anyone that does customized reporting. Next area, just to touch on, is bank reconciliations. Now, I would hope if you've been in Xero over the last week or so, you would have seen that they've dramatically changed the UI and the interface that you're working with on bank recs. And the jury's out on whether this actually is beneficial or not. What they've done is made everything bigger. Now, that's quite good, I guess, if you're working on a small screen. But if you're trying to work through things quickly, it can be quite painful, and scrolling down to find a transaction you need to look at, because now fewer transactions fit on a single page. So if you're looking at 30 bank reconciliation items and you need to go and find one specifically to process it, that actually is a bit more painful. But in essence, the way of working Xero, the way they're trying to get you to work, is to stay on top of those bank reconciliations, do it as you go along. And so hopefully it's not going to affect those of you massively in a negative way. But I have seen people commenting throughout I guess the Xero community, and I do wonder why it's been changed in that way. Personally, I can't see why making it bigger has helped, but bigger or smaller, the key thing is if you're doing it as you go along, you won't really notice a massive difference. The important bits are what they've changed in the background. So they have now adopted some artificial intelligence. Now, oddly, this is actually something that they announced at their conference, XeroCon, about 3 years ago, that they're looking to develop. And only now have they got the software to a point where actually it's going to be doing a lot of what they were aiming to do. Now, I'm not sure if that's because they parked it or they just found it was a lot more complicated, but they're basically bringing in machine learning to see how you operate and then predict what you're going to do next. The first bit that they've enabled is regarding transfers. So if you're transferring money between different accounts, massive pain point, you have to go in both accounts previously and work out what you've done. You have to allocate that transfer to the account each time. Now, in essence, if you've done a transfer to an account before, it's going to memorize that, work out, and automatically basically preempt where you're putting it. So it's just a simple accept. Similarly on the other side as well. So it should hopefully speed up the transfer side. Not a massive change. Only if you're doing a lot of transfers between accounts, you're going to notice the difference there. Two other areas that they've looked at are contacts and account codes. And these, if you're ever posting things to the balance sheet or P&L, so not directly against invoices, this will make a big difference to you, because they've far enhanced predicting the right contact and the right account code to prompt where it's placing it. So that predictive bit on the right hand side where it gives you that blue OK button, this is where it's enhanced significantly. Now, it's not out for everyone at the moment. It's what they call in beta stage. So there's a group of people that this has been rolled out to. You may be one of those. Basically, it's in a testing thing, seeing how you interact with it. Over the next month or so, everyone will experience this change. You probably won't notice it straight away because nothing's fundamentally going to look different. But hopefully, you'll see a lot more educated prompting inside the bank reconciliation. Now, this is Xero's probably best feature. This is the thing that made Xero great, was the ability to link into your bank, pull your transactions down, and make this user interface really, really slick. And it's great that they're still working on it. How much of a difference this is going to make, I'm unsure as yet. But in essence, as we've seen their competitors come and try and update their bank reconciliation, what I've seen from Xero is they're generally still the best in the market in this area. And it's great that they're still developing it. Now, quick screenshot, you've probably seen this for all of those that have worked on it. You can see on this screen, much bigger areas, buttons for bank transactions. So probably historically, if I'd done a screenshot, you'd probably see 2 or 3 transactions on this. Now you've got one big transaction. Not sure if it's helping or not. I guess jury's out. Please let me know your feedback on that. So let's see if I can now jump out into a bit of a demonstration. Just run through different areas of Xero that I touched on. The first one I really want to focus on in some depth is the Analytics Plus. So short-term cash flow first. Now, please bear with me. This is our demo company. The Xero demo company, which is normally what I would show you functionality on, does not have Analytics Plus enabled, so I can't show you it on there. And our demo company has some has limited data. The short-term cash flow does not look great in this. For example, I've just got virtually a straight line, as you can see. But in essence, you still see the same kind of things on the screen on your data if you enable it, but a lot more kind of information present. So we've got total money in, total money out, and a projected end balance. Always going to show the same. Key thing is at the top. Now we can move out to 90 days. So you'll see a lot more movement in your graph predicting what's going to happen. You can still filter between different bank accounts. So we may not want that account shown, for example, or we may want to include it, to include the balance. It's really up to you. You can focus on what actual, what bank account you want to look at, or do you want to look at it across your entire business? Now, another thing that they've tweaked is this projection breakdown. So by default, it's going to go to week. So you can click on each week and see what's happening. As I said, not much data in here. But the other thing they've now brought in is by day, you can really delve into the granularity of what's happening on a day-by-day basis and what makes up that movement. So in this sense, I've got one invoice. I can drill into that and find out what's going on. But as well as this, you will see predictions. So say we've got this one invoice that's going in on that day, you may have a prediction as it's towards the end of the month of payroll. And so you'll see net wages payments going out based on what they predict you're going to pay from what you've paid in the past. Now that should greatly enhance the cash flow areas, the cash flow projections inside the business. But if you're looking at this and you still think this is not great, remember you can go in and edit those. So if you've got that cash flow line, you can click on it and go and exclude that payroll payment if you're not making it, or edit it to resemble what you need and bring in additional transactions that you need. And Xero also suggests what you should look at. Now, data is pretty useless. I really need to chase these invoices. 350k worth outstanding for a very long time. My business is not going to be operating quite that effectively. But in essence, it's telling you to add expected payment dates. So to get your cash flow more accurately, instead of just relying on the due date, which is never when a customer pays it exactly, you can go into the invoice section up here and add when your invoices are expected to come in, and similarly on bills to pay. And I advise exploring that if you want to make use of the short-term cash flow projection. The business snapshot side, less work that they've done, but they have made a few tweaks that are quite interesting. So if you've never used the business snapshot before, it's looking at your profit and loss, showing how money is coming in or out over a period, breaking that down into income and expenditure, and then looking at what they call efficiency. So what's your gross profit margin? How are you doing on that? And then what are your key expenses? Now, over time, what they're going to look to do is bring in budgets in this. So it will match your expenses against your budgets. But for now, it's just looking at costs going in and out, and then touches on your financial position. So how do your assets compare to the breakdown of your liabilities and equity? And generally, we want the equity to be as high as possible and your liabilities to be small, but that depends on the operation of your business. Touches on cash flow. Obviously, you can then go in and look at your cash flow projection, and also gives you some debtor days and some creditor days. Now, all of these are improved if you focus on those tweaks that were mentioned in that short-term cash flow down here. So if you play with when you're expected to receive money and when you're expected to pay money, your business snapshot also improves. Now, there are a few tweaks they've made in here which can be useful. You can obviously change the date that we're looking at. You might want to look over the last financial year, for example, or you might want to look at what happened over the last month. But you can also tweak this to be cash-based. So instead of just invoicing, if I look at the last financial year for the cash, obviously I've got only income of 19,000. I've not received that much money compared to the invoice basis, which is not loading for me, showing £49,000 coming in. So you still get that ability to compare how your business is done over a period on either an accrual or cash basis. Now, that ability to turn off accounts, you can do via this edit metrics page. Now, I'm still not sure how useful this is. It breaks it down between income and expense accounts, but if I say, yeah, I don't want to look at my sales, that makes a fundamental difference to what I'm looking at. Obviously, I'm not going to make any profit, but what insights does that give me? I'm not sure. Maybe there'll be a key expenditure. So for example, you may have depreciation. You don't want to look or include depreciation when you're looking at your business snapshot. So you would come in and find depreciation and remove it and go, actually, without that, what's the effect on my business? And as you can see over here, it's now showing that it's not showing it for the whole business, but just 57 of the 58 accounts. So as I mentioned, two areas that are now called Analytics Plus, which is the cash flow, and the business snapshot. You find both up here. And when you first go into it, it'll just say Analytics. If you want that upgraded, so you can play with Analytics Plus, let me know and I can enable it. But maybe put in a reminder just before you get to the 31st of January. Decide if you want it or not and let me know if you don't. Now, delving into the packing slip. Now, what I've gone into for this is I've gone into sales overview and invoices. I've selected an invoice, any invoice. Now, as I mentioned, you can switch between the classic invoicing down here and the new invoicing module. I'm in the new invoicing module. If this does not look normal for you, that's because you're in classic. You want to switch the new one. And over here, you will see down in the drop down an option for a packing slip. So you simply click on that. It creates the PDF based on your branding that you can then print or save for later. Pretty simple. Not going to delve into that too much. Just wanted to show you where to find that via the demonstration. Now, going into reports, you find this, as I assume you're aware, in accounting and reports. This is a report page. Obviously, I've got a lot on here because I've enabled pretty much everything on our demo account. The key thing is, as you can see, everything now has the ability to star. So I can add, for example, VAT reconciliation, if it works, try profit and loss. And it should then appear. Typically, when I try and do a demo, it's now not working for me. All right, for you, it'll work. I've tried this before. If you star it, it'll work. I have a feeling it may have logged me out or it's restricting my access due to security reasons. But in essence, you can star any report and it will appear up in your drop down up there. Delving into a specific area, I just wanted to show you the income and expenses by contact report. And this is that new one where they've merged both the income and expenses side. You can still see these individually. So if I jump, if I jump back into the, why is it when I try and do this, I get a annoying thing appear? There you go. So if I jump down into my reports page, you can see income by expenses and contact in the accounting section. If you want to see the separate report, you can still do that by just clicking the 3 dots, and they appear on the right side, and you can star those. If you don't care about expenses, you just want to see income, you can star that instead of the combined report. But generally, I think this is quite good. Seeing in the movement, if you've got a contact that you work on both as a customer and supplier, you can see what's going in and out for that individual contact. Now, diving into the edit side, the ability to track. So I've got a custom date range up here. If I then want to edit this report, I simply click Edit Layout down the bottom. Yep, brilliantly, nothing is working for me. That works well. I don't know if this is because I've been logged out. That's very possible. Let's try that once more. Otherwise, I will have to skip this area. My apologies. There you go. Work this time. So if you've ever worked in this, this would look familiar to you. You can add and remove columns. You can play around with how the grouping works, etc. The key thing I just wanted to show you is if you now click on a column that you're working on, you've got this custom date range and the follow report date. Small edit, very important. So I can click that and it will just now work for the period that was shown inside that report. You save that, you basically push done, and then it will go back to the main screen where your report was. And you can, once it loads, you can then save this as a custom report. If you never played with it, definitely advise playing around with the custom report in Xero. You can do a lot with that now. Small limitation if you want to merge or create reports that blend income and balance sheet accounts, or income and expense P&L accounts and balance sheet accounts. There's some limitations there. Otherwise, there's a great amount of flexibility inside the Xero reporting that you can do. Get a lot of the information out that you probably need for your KPI monitoring inside your business. Well, final area I just want to touch on is that bank coding section. So I'm going to only briefly show you this because I assume you've probably all seen it, but as I described, very big areas. So I'm not zoomed in. This is my normal page, but now the screen looks huge. Looks like we've zoomed in, and you fit less on there. So there's going to be a lot more pages if you do reconciliations with lots of transactions at once. So that's all I was going to jump on the demonstration. So if I jump back into my slides, one area I wanted to touch on is the App Store. Now, this is quite a fundamental change for Xero, and I'll touch on why. But if you've never been to the app marketplace, the App Store before, definitely something worth checking out. Now, the address is in the top left-hand corner of this image. So apps.xero.com/UK. Simple way of finding it is in Google. If you just type in Xero App Store, it'll be the #1 listing on Google, and you can click into it. The main reason I advise checking it out is by using the apps with Xero, you can greatly enhance how you work. This is something that obviously I advise on, but I advise any business to have a look at it. And there's fundamental ones that they will prompt you to look at. Now, on the left-hand side, you've got apps sorted by function or grouped by function. So there might be something you're looking at for data tracking or credit control, and they'll be filtered into there for the apps that are relevant for that. But they've also got it by industry, which is further down in this area. And so you can filter and look at what's relevant to you based on how you work. Now, what they've done, apart from just revise the look slightly, is they've actually now tailored the App Store for when you log in. If you've logged in under your business, the App Store will look fundamentally different for you because they're now filtering what apps are pushed towards you or promoted to you based on the industry you're in and your profile, so how you generally operate. So if there's areas where you've already got a credit control tool, they're not going to put that forward because you've already got one. They're going to look at other things that may work for your business profile and prompt you to consider those. They've also revised the review process. So if you've ever been in the App Store before, you'll see for every app there is a 0 to 5 star review and a number of reviews that have been completed. But admittedly, a lot of apps have probably abused this functionality. So what they've done is they've got friends, colleagues, etc., to write reviews. That's helped boost their rating, giving them 5 stars, and it's manipulated their place in the App Store. Now, what Xero have done, and now they're filtering it to show only those people, those businesses that use those apps will get those reviews or give those reviews more weight. So in essence, it's going to give you a better insight into how effective or how good these apps are based on those people that actually use the apps and write a legitimate review for them. The final bit they're doing is they're looking to now centralize subscriptions. So you can sign up for an app directly from within Xero's App Store, and it adds on to your Xero subscription. Now, I'm still trying to explore how that will work in certain contexts. So we, for a lot of our clients, manage to secure discounts on different apps. And I don't know if you can get those discounts directly from subscribing through the App Store. So beware. If you are looking and you found an app via this personalized search and you think this is going to be really good for me, please reach out. It may be that we can get you a better deal than you can through the App Store. Something I do know is that Xero are charging the apps for using this centralized subscription model. So the apps are suffering, which might mean they'd increase their prices. That's something speculative, I don't know yet. But it may be that those discounts that you get through us are not available through the App Store. Still exploring that. We'll hopefully have more information for the next update, that next quarterly update. But please reach out if you are considering adding an app at any stage. So I've got a few small other updates, not many this time because the big ones I need to dive into in more detail. One, if you use Go Cardless or you operate in multi-currency, you now have the ability to work through one Go Cardless account and support multi-currency operation model. Now, Go Cardless works really well if you've got regular invoices to the same customers. Doesn't have to be the same amount, can be variable amounts, doesn't have to be regular payments. It just means it gives you the power to secure that income coming in. So if you can get your customers to sign up for a direct debit mandate, you will get that money secured in your account based on the due date of the invoice. So something that is definitely worth exploring. I know that there's one of my clients recently has signed up for this just to give them a bit more security over the cash. And it's not like traditional direct debit. You get a lot more control. As well as that, your customer gets more information. So before they're about to take that payment, Go Cardless sends them a reminder automatically from the system saying this amount will come down. So if you work in multi-currency, if this has been a pain point or you'd like to explore direct debits, have a look at Go Cardless. You can do that from within the payment options inside the Xero settings. Another small tweak, if you use HubDoc, which is an app that integrates with Xero, the Xero actually own, so similar to Dext or to auto entry, they've now enhanced this to include default due dates per supplier. Now, in reality, they're just tweaking the HubDoc system to try and catch up to the likes of auto entry and Dext. The system's still not as good, and the user interface is a lot worse. But if you are using Xero, it is free, so it may be worth exploring. Not necessarily to use for everything, but explore it, see if it'll work for you. Personally, I've found that actually the way it works is probably more pain than it's worth in adopting it, and you probably get more value for money for one of those paid apps such as Dext or auto entry. But it's subjective. Take a look if you've got a few spare minutes. Every quarter, we try and run through some changes to mobile apps. Not that many this quarter. Normally, they've been doing a lot, actually. I think the last 3 quarters, we've had maybe 5 or 6 each time. Just a couple this time. One is the ability now to send quotes with attachments for both iOS and Android. Previously, you could just send quotes separately. Now you can add attachments. So anything that you want, terms and conditions, images, etc., you can now send with your quotes. And the other bit they've tweaked, which I don't know why it's taken so long to bring in, is when you're adding a contact, you can now start typing an address and it will pre-fill it based on the Google algorithm. So if you ever started typing in addresses on other forms, on other websites, they generally use the Google algorithm and they start pre-filling it as you type. Small tweak, easy to generally bring in, much better and probably expected for most apps. So I think Xero were a little bit behind on this, but they've brought this into the mobile app now. Last bit I wanted to touch on was pricing. So Xero are increasing their pricing from the 23rd of September for all of their licenses. So there's some bureau licenses that if Xero operates not directly, so you don't interface with Xero, there's some slight increases there, but I generally expect everyone to be on this, those that are interacting with Xero directly, and you'll be on one of these 3 packages, either starter, standard, or premium. Now, I believe they're actually going to change the name of standard to growing from some slides I've seen. Not that matters, but in essence, they're adding on £2 a month for starter and £2 a month for standard, and then £3 a month for premium from the 23rd of September. Now, generally, you're not going to be being charged these rates anyway. If you go through our model, we offer a discount and we pass that discount on. We will, over the course of the next couple of months, have to increase our pricing to you to reflect these changes. It won't be an exact match to the £2. It'll be looking at basic discounts we get and how we can pass those on. But we'll be communicating with you directly on how that changes. The key thing that we've looked at and had a discussion with Xero on this is for standard and premium, that's probably reasonable. They've not increased their prices for I'd say 2 to 3 years now. And looking at it on inflation and the functionality brought in, you can probably justify that for what they brought in. But for starter, I'm not sure they can really justify or verify £2 a month increase. I mean, a 20% increase is quite significant at any given time. The one thing that they've probably got as an out on this is they did greatly increase the number of transactions that could be used on a starter package. And so that's probably how they've justified it, because they've got a lot more businesses now that can use starter. Those that are tiny, I'd say this is probably a bit of a punishing increase. But if you've got any questions on any of this, you want to know what the increase will go up to any before we send out a general notification, please reach out to me and I will look to give you an insight into that. So what's to come? So not massive changes. Generally, I find that with Xero, they will have a quarter that's quite quiet and a quarter that's incredibly busy. As the last quarter was incredibly busy, this one I'm expected to be quite quiet. But a few tweaks that are quite interesting. So the dashboard, quite a useful tool. Don't know how many of you use it, but the account watch list is probably the best one in there. And the key thing for this is you can flag key expenditure that you want to keep an eye on. Now, generally, historically, you had to just have an idea of what that should look like, but now it will link through to your budgets and show you what your account, your key expenses or income is doing compared to those budgets. This is probably something that will make a big difference if you use the account watch list effectively. If you've never used it before, you edit this by going into your chart of accounts, finding the nominal account and tick a box that says bring into the account watch list. You may have accounts in there that are completely irrelevant, you don't care about, they're not key to the operating of your business. And I always advise every business to tweak what's in the account watch list, because really make the dashboard useful for you. Another area that actually quite a few businesses are unaware of is there is a KPI reporting area inside of Xero reports. And you can, inside that, tweak or tick KPIs that are important to you, and they will appear in your dashboard. Something that Xero doesn't shout about, but actually is very powerful. So if that's something that anyone wants some more information on, please let me know. I will cover it in next quarter. But I can also, if everyone's reaching out and wants this, I can try and release a quick video showing you where it is and just send that on to you. Other tweaks, unsurprisingly, they're still editing their reports. So you've got a running total for the P&L now that will be coming out in the next 3 months. Not something that I think is really that overwhelming. Not entirely sure what businesses are going to be using it, but if you think that will be helpful, expect that in the next 3 months. And then account transactions are going to be further enhanced. They actually did a tweak to this, not this quarter, but the quarter before, and they're bringing a lot more functionality into that. This one, the account transactions report, is actually quite important. Anytime you drill into a trial balance or a profit and loss account, this is really what you're going into, and greater functionality in this area to slice data is very handy. So be interesting to see what they do and what they tweak in that area. Other little changes, Xero projects, you can now assign staff to individual projects, or you will be able to in the next 3 months. Products and services, you can now filter per status. You'll be able to do this in the bank rec as well. Slightly late, they're predicting this will come out, but they're hoping to do this in the next 3 months. If you've got a lot of transactions or you really heavily use these areas, this will be quite key. I think this is quite niche. I don't think a lot of our clients really use this for a lot of depth. So it'll be interesting to see actually how they tweak this, what use cases they put forward for how you can get the most out of this area. And then from the VAT reports, the detailed transaction report that sits behind your VAT, from directly inside that transaction report, you'll be able to access documents. So you'll be able to click that link to bring up the document to understand what makes up that transaction. Now, this, I think, will be quite powerful. You don't need to now drill into individual transactions, then find the area where the document's held. You're probably saving 3 clicks here. Quite key if you're just wanting to do a quick review of your VAT report. So that's a summary of what is to come. Generally, I expect some more releases to come in over this period anyway. What normally happened is Xero would have their conference in November, and that would when some big releases come out. They're not doing that this year. So there may be some big announcements. We don't know. But I know that they're working on some other areas. As I said, bank reconciliation, they're looking to focus on over the next 3 months. So I'd expect to see some tweaks there as well. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. I just wanted to mention to you, we have a new or a specific dedicated webinar coming up, I think on the 9th of September. I'm looking over at our marketing team to see if that's correct, and they'll be able to let me know. Yeah, they're nodding, that's good. But in essence, we are focusing on 3 apps that are new to the marketplace, all regarding finance, that we see as I guess game changers, something that we think will be fundamental and worth looking at, worth exploring. May not be worth adopting now, but something that's definitely will make a big splash in I guess in the app marketplace and how you interact with Xero. Now, just a quick overview of what those are. You've got an app that focuses on payments, so making payments to suppliers. If you use Wise inside Xero to enable your payments, which we do internally, you'll know that there's payments based on transaction volume, and that's because they use a merchant service. So every time a transaction goes through, there is a cost associated with that. This new app called Comma is using open banking. There are no costs per transaction for using open banking. So you'll have a fixed amount per month for endless transactions. And the way they're using it, the interface that we've used or played with at the moment, looks like it's going to be a very promising app that should make that journey very slick. Very new. They're limited to certain things they can do due to the limitations of open banking, but we'll be delving into that in a bit more detail. Another one is regarding how you get paid for your invoices, enabling that to be quite streamlined. If you've used payment service providers such as Stripe, they take a fee off of every transaction. We've got one called Cresco that I'm going to be covering, which now they utilize open banking tools to enable your customers to make a payment with no transaction costs. So another one that's in essence free or a fixed cost. They'll be delving in, telling you how that works. So definitely worth tuning in for both of those apps. And there's another one that we'll be looking at called Arex. Now, if you ever looked at invoice discounting or invoice financing, Arex tweaks kind of how this works. So they are a selective invoice financing tool. And what that does is it takes your invoice and puts it out to the market based on algorithms. And so you're getting basically the best rate in the market. You're not going to a bank. It's using basically investors that want to make a small return quickly on invoices. Now, the beauty of how they're working is it's using market power to drive down rates, and you can pick and choose when you want to use it. You can sign up for it, and at some point you may go, we need some cash flow quickly. You select one of your invoices, you put it through Arex, you get that cash flow, and you get it at the lowest rate. So I advise tuning in for our webinar on all of this on the 9th of September, which will run through how all these work, and you may find that one of them actually is something worth exploring. Now, I don't think I've got any questions come in, but if anyone does have any questions, please drop it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise,